Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyanat Maninam Mayaya Bhairivot Bhutam Yatha Nidraya Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahitam Shri Dakshina Murtaye. Try to speak a little louder. Still undergoing the same issues that I've had for a while. So hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it soon. So this class, as you know very well, is devoted to an understanding of what Vedanta is and how can it help us. That's the title, the vision and the promise of Vedanta. And it certainly can clarify your own ideas. But in addition to that, it should serve as a blueprint for something that you can base your own teaching on. You can build a booklet of your own. I mean, you've seen all that. So that's the trend that I'm following, and it'll slowly get more and more advanced as we go along. But we're still covering the basics to make sure that we pay attention to all the basic ideas that are important. Basic doesn't mean that they are unimportant. In fact, the more basic they are, the more important they are, because we should not overlook them and go to the next step without adequately understanding what the base understanding is. So we saw that our scriptural authority, Vedas, also called Shastra, has two aspects. We have seen that. One aspect is a meaning of the word Shastras as Shasanakarta. Shasanakarta means one that establishes a very clear mandate of what needs to be done. And you can even say that it has semi-religious basis for that. But more than religious, what it means is, so Swami Kandananda has very nicely pointed out, at the moment before you get introduced to the Shastra, you and I are following the Shastra of Vasanas. So for a long time, forever, we have been influenced by our own karma and karma phala and taking a birth and following the rules of the world based on my own likes and dislikes, and very natural ones either. We all like to be happy and praised and protected. We don't like to be criticized and all those kinds of things. So that's the structure that I'm following. This is called Vasanatmakaha. So our life is Vasanatmakaha. Now the issue with that is the problem. What is the problem? So let it be a Vasanatmakaha. There's a huge problem with that. Because as we saw in the very beginning of these telecasts, that everyone seems to be lost. We all want total freedom, but we can't get it. And we're going around in circles, both within one life, but certainly between one life and another. Whether you believe in life after death or not, the fact of the matter is, the truth is that your vasanas to fulfill has to be done through another body. And the old body has become useless, so you have to pick up something new. And the picking up the new body also is based on your previous vasanas. I want this, I want that. This goes on and on. So this is the problem of vasana-atmaka, order of my thinking. So here Shastra comes in and says, listen, let me tell you the mistakes you are making. You are confused. You don't know which way is. It is like a maze, and the ultimate realization that I am in a never-ending maze, if I, after a long concourse of walking and running and so on, I come back to the same point that I've seen before. I'll say, oh my God. This is what is called back to square one. So this is what happens every life. This is a back to square one. Shastra says, I know. You want to get out of the maze, right? I'll tell you a way. You follow my instructions. And that involves sadhana chatushtaya, shamadama uparape, all kinds of things. And not blame anybody else. Just go on with it. Don't become a karma phala. Don't yearn for it. Just become a karma phala tyagi. Oh, you're all of that. This is what the message of the Bhagavad Gita is. If you do that, then you are ready to understand why you are not gaining total freedom, which is yours. You are already free, as we have seen now by our previous classes. You are already complete. So this is a very funny thing. You are just like, you're dreaming. You're dreaming that you are bound and there's somebody coming to get you and all kinds of problems and so on. All it needs is you wake up and you say, my God, I don't have to go anywhere. The whole dream is gone. So this is it's called praptasya praptihi. The acquisition of the already acquired. You are already free. But to understand that, because we always say, how can that be true? I think the completeness is only with Parameshwara. I am just a small person. How can I be complete? Shastra says, listen. I know you think that, but that's not true. Parameshwara cannot be different from you, because if you keep Parameshwara away from you, then you are limiting him. And you ask all the 8 billion people, have you seen Parameshwara anywhere? They'll say no. So that means there is no Parameshwara anywhere in our existence. Can that be true? Is that a true definition of Parameshwara? So clearly there is a problem in the way you understand it. So it's not true. You are already complete. You just have to wake up to that fact. That's it. This is the basic message of Shastra, as we've seen. So here the Shastra says that you have to follow logic based on my suggestions. Logic is essential. Without logic, because the mind only works on logic, it does not accept illogical things. So logic is essential. But the fact is, what kind of logic? not whether there should be logic or not. Logic will be there, but if you're following what is called Shushka Tarka, Tarka is called logic in Vedanta, and Shushka means dry logic. Don't follow dry logic. What is dry logic? Shushka Tarka, what do you mean by that? So examples are, which is, very commonly held, if you're an atheist, you don't believe in God, this is based on Shushka Tarka. And you say, has anybody seen God? This is so stupid. These are all faith-based people who don't know what they're doing. You don't even know where God is. Have you ever proven that He's not there? And look at all the problems that are happening. Look at what Trump is doing. Would there be God who can really correct him? So there must not be any God. This Musk and Trump are going mad. And so that means there is no central person. Otherwise, he'll say, shut up. Don't do all of this nonsense. So there is no God. There's no God. So, and from there, so this is called Shushka Tarka. Shushka Tarka means that if God was there, we would be able to see Him. We would see His, didn't you say that God is all mercy? Yes, He's all mercy. Where is the mercy? People are dying, that 67 people got killed in this accident between the plane and the helicopter. Where is the mercy? What did they do wrong? So there is no, this is called Shushka Tarka, means there is no God. So here Vedanta says, if you keep on following such faulty logic without understanding what is happening, you're not going to go anywhere. If you want to believe in that, go ahead and do it. But I am just telling you that if you want to search, because there is a search for causes, there must be a cause. And what caused that cause? What caused that cause that caused? So you keep on going backwards towards cause, and you will end up by saying, I don't know. There's no answers in the way you approach. So don't follow Shushka Tarka. That's basically what. But on the other hand, Tarka, this is what is called Shrutimata Tarka. Shrutimata Tarka means a Tarka which is in keeping with what Shastra is saying. In the Sadhana Panchakam, it says, Shrutimata Tarka Anusandhiyatam. May you follow the Shrutimata Tarka. So what is Shrutimata Tarka? He says there is logic, but see it the way I'm presenting it to you. Don't try to do it on your own and you get lost and then you get frustrated and then, you lose your buddhi, you lose the whole thing. As Gita says, buddhi nashaha, smriti nashaha, krodha, kama krodha, and how that leads into complete destruction. This is exactly what happens in road rages. That's some small thing that happens. Somebody runs into you. It's a fender bender. So yeah, it's a cause for unhappiness, but it's just a fender bender. Instead, it comes up with people come out and say, why did you do that? And he says, I didn't do it. You stopped suddenly. No, I didn't. It leads to, and God forbid, this is what happens in this country. People have, but a good number of people have guns. And if they don't have the guns with them, they will note down the address and go on later on and shoot the person. And then there is, they get punished. Buddhi nasha. So, the Shrutimata Tarka Anusandhiyatam, please follow that. So, what is Shrutimata Tarka? What is the logic based on what the Shastra is saying? So, Shastra says, you're ready? You are accepting Shrutimata Tarka? So if a person says, yes, I do, I want to explore that based on, as you say, some proven ways to be free, what is it? So here, Shastra has devised a rather simple methodology for gaining freedom. Very simple. It's not complicated. The only complication comes in is if I don't accept it because of my doubts. Here, it's interesting. A lot of the acharyas say this. Swami Khandananda says this. Swami Maheshananda used to say this very much. And I recall this, I think I've told you this already, that when we were graduating from PRC, so, when we entered PRC, we had this false idea that in a couple of years, I'm going to become a Mahatma because I'm spending a lot of time. I have changed my life. This is what I want to do. And I am just going to, I am getting somewhere, and 2 years is enough time, and I will study it, and I will get it, and I will just become a free person. Well, slowly, as the time passes, you feel I am not yet free. So frustration sets in. This is what life is all about. Even now, this is what's happening. You feel it. I should have been done by now. How come I'm not done? So I remember this so well. I hope I don't lose the train of my thought because I want to come back to the simplicity of the logic. But I remember this so well. In fact, I'm just sitting in a room, in a house, where I had a personal conversation with Swami Dayanandji. Because after PRC in 82, soon after that, we were living in a small home in Los Gatos. We had outgrown it, and we had to move into a larger home because our kids were becoming bigger and so on. And we were lucky enough to buy the property of this home in Los Altos Hills. And with Ishwara's blessing, somehow or the other, we gathered enough money to start building. And we built this much larger home. And after that, this was like in 1985 when we moved in. Then the next time Swami Dayanandji came, of course, he stayed with me, and for a long period of time, he would come and stay here. In this next room from here was his bedroom. And then downstairs, there's another guest room. And sometimes he would prefer to be isolated, so he would stay there. And then, several times he would come and grace this home. Very beautiful, wonderful thing to do. In fact, I don't remember the exact year, but it must have been very early on, 85, 86. We had not bought the furniture. And in our living room, we just had you know, places for people to sit on the floor. And Swamiji is just about 20 feet on the other side of the wall. He taught 3 or 4 days of Dakshinamurti Stotra. Anyway, so he was used to come. Anyway, what I was going to say was, after Piercy, there was some frustration that how come I'm not yet Mahatma as I should have been. I've done everything that I can. So when in one of those days when Swamiji was staying with me, I kind of asked him, I said, Swamiji, what more do I need to do? And he understood where I was coming from. And I remember his answer so clearly, as if it was yesterday. He said, you just have to clear your doubts. And at that time, I felt, I don't have any doubts. What doubts should I clear? This was the foolishness. Because if I just sort of understood what Atma is and Anatma is, I thought I'm done. It's not how it was. So clearly I didn't even know what my doubts were. I was thinking, what doubts are you talking about? But then when I started to study, I began to see I still have a lot of doubts. And slowly in the study, this is what I've been trying to eliminate. So going back to the Shruti Mata Tarka, the logic that we should follow, which has been blessed by the Shastra. That's what it means, Shruti Mata Tarka. Blessed by the Shastra. Shastra says, wait, this is very simple. Don't make it complicated. Don't make it very complicated. And I'll show you how simple it is. So look at the simplicity of this logic and follow the simplicity of it and just keep following that. Don't get too involved in what about this, what about that, and so on. How long, this is one of the things that people have doubts over. Didn't you tell me, my teacher, that I've had many, many lives and I've been confused for a long time, and up until this life also, I'm steeped in ignorance. Haven't you been telling me all this? So we said, yeah, we have been telling you. So you are right. So eons of darkness. How can eons of darkness and confusion and ignorance suddenly go? Isn't going to take some time? Vedanta says no. And there's actually a very beautiful example. They say that there are many, many caves on earth that have never been explored before. No one has actually entered them, either out of fear or uncertainty or remoteness, or whatever reason. Caves sometimes have never been explored. And so they have been dark for millions of years. But suppose some brave young person says, you know what, I'm going to explore on this cave. So people say, don't do that, because here there could be snakes and wild animals and who knows, God knows what. and you don't know what you are going to get into, don't get into all of that. He says, well, I'll try. So he puts on this, you know, this searchlight on the top of his head so he doesn't have to hold it. I need to get one of those. Those really look neat. So he says, I have a strong battery operated searchlight that I can just go. And 2 or 3 of them all started walking in. So the answer is that a cave that has been dark for millions of years, how long does it take to reveal itself? Instantly. They can go in and say, oh my God, wow, I can't believe, they have some discovery about it right away. So Vedanta in Shastra also says, it doesn't matter how long you've been ignorant, but the light of knowledge will dispel it instantly. And so don't rely upon your doubts and say, I have so many doubts and so on. Rearrange your doubts in the way this logic is presented. Look at the beauty and the simplicity of the logic. So the student says, okay, all right. What do you mean by the simplicity of the logic? So here, Shastra begins the teaching. This is what is called the second aspect of Shastra, which is Shansanam. Well, we have talked about it before. One is Shasanam, which is a mandate. Here's what you need to do. This is how you have to lead your life. Do's and don'ts. Follow the discipline, all the sadhana chatushtaya and so on. That is all part of Shasanam, part of the karmakanda also, if you want to go to that extent. But then this is readiness for Shamsanam, which requires some very simple logic. So what is that logic? So it says, okay. He says, now look at the nature of any experience. Any experience. Like seeing a movie or watching television or just talking to people. Any experience. You decide what kind of experience you want. Any experience has 2 elements that comprise the experience. All of them consist of 2 elements. All of them. Think about it. One is what you are seeing and feeling and hearing. In other words, what is your experience? And the other one is who is experiencing it? The experiencer and the experienced. Any experience consists of these 2 factors. Very simple. So you should follow this logic that you should follow the simplicity of this logic. You reduce any experience in your life into these 2 factors. Okay? All right. So what you are experiencing, what you are seeing is given in the word is characterized by the thought idam, here. And there also is nothing but here. Not yet here, but here. Idam, idam, idam. This experience. It used to be. It is happening now. It may be. But no matter how it happens, it is characterized by the word idam. Idam means this, isn't it? And also another word for that is drishyam. So drishyam means what is subject to be seen. Either it is seen or subject to be seen. Because if you don't see something right now, it doesn't mean that you'll never see it. You just have to change the circumstance so that you are able to see it. So even the unseen things that are experienceable are also part of drishya and idam. This is factor number one. So remember, each experience cannot be complete. You cannot call it an experience until you have this one factor, drishya or idam, and another factor which is drik or anidam. Anidam means not idam, not this. And you are the anidam. You are the drik, very obvious. I mean, even if we were to have a class for, 7 or 8-year-old, I recall that several years back when Kumud Singhal used to teach Purna Vidya to youngsters in her garage, where she even now lives in Milpitas. And she had several years of teaching Purna Vidya. And a couple of times she invited my wife and I to the graduation of each year. And then she would have the students give some illustrations of what they've learned, some songs, etc. And I tell you, I was very impressed that the same logic about drik and drishya and water and wave that we were talking about, they already knew all this. And I said, my goodness, I still remember this. They could not be much more than 8, 9 years old, maybe 10, I don't know. But this is not that difficult to grasp, right? Well, anyway, going back to the fundamental factors of an experience. One is idam and the other one is anidam. Got it? So far we are together? Yes, yes. Now we say the idam is in the form of a appearance without reality. Any idam. So this, first we divided that into two factors. Now we are examining the first factor of the idam, and we say that idam is what we call mithya. And what is the definition of mithya? Again, we are presenting the fundamentals of Vedanta in a way that if you're talking to someone who's never thought about it, you should be able to explain it this way. What is it that in this way means what? Means that for a person who has never thought of it in this way, you look at reality in either black or white, in the sense either something is or it is not there. If a thing is not there, is not idam, it's not there, right? This is how we used to. This is the common thing that everybody grows up with. If you see something, means it is there. You know, this is interesting. I think I've already talked about this. I think Swami Akhandananda, he says, you know, look at this. He says that between a Vedantin and a non-Vedantin, what kind of opposite viewpoints they have. Just look at it. A non-Vedantin says, if you see something, then it is real. Right? Because the only things that you cannot see, cannot feel, cannot experience is something which is not there. So if something is there, that means it is real. Or it is not there, not real. This is the only thing, the way the world is. Vedantin says just the opposite. He says, my dear, let me tell you the premise of Vedanta. Vedanta says, whatever you see is not real. What? How can that be? There we have to go into the fundamental of what is real, what is reality. And so the study of this is also called ontology. So ontology means the study of reality, the definition of reality. What do you mean by real? Satyam. So that will become clearer as we go along, but for now, Vedanta says that there is a kind of a mid-between reality, between there and not there. And it's called mithya. Mithya is neither there nor not nor there. It is somewhere in between. And so the classical example, as you know, is that of the various shapes of a clay in the form of a cup or a saucer or a glass. And so there, the glassness or the cupness or the saucerness is mithya, in the sense that you cannot say it is not there because I see it. It has a certain shape. On the other hand, it does not have its own reality because it depends on the material that it is made out of. So if this was made out of clay, then clay is the reality of the cup. Reality meaning what? That the cup is not an individual object with its own weight. The weight of the cup is the weight of the clay. The color of the cup is the color of clay. So really the only vastu, as we say, the vastu means something that is unique in its own definition, is clay. Not any of the things that comprise it, that that the clay comprises of. Therefore, so the cup and the saucer and the glass has an appearance, but it is not real in its own sense. So the Vedantin says just the opposite. That if I see something, that means it is not real. The opposite of what the non-Vedantin says, which says, if I see something, it must be real. Anyway, going back to our fundamental logic, so we see the two factors. So one which is idam and one which is non-idam, anidam. All idam is mithya. All idam is mithya. This is the next step in the logic based on Shastra. Shruti Mata Tarkam. Anything which is idam is mithya. How? Because it is not independently there. All idam consists of anidam. All idam is based on, consists of an anidam. Anidam, like the clay, is the satyam of idam. Idam does not have its own satyam, its own reality. It is a borrowed reality from anidam. Just like a cup borrows its reality, this is what is called upadana karanam. Upadana karanam means the material cause. It's called upadana karanam. Upadana karanam means the material cause of cup is clay. And the clay does not have a separate, the cup does not have a separate reality other than the material. Isn't it? It's very clear. In a similar way, all idams do not have their own reality. The upadana karanam of all idam is anidam. And who is the anidam? You, the conscious being, the satyam. So the satyam of idam is borrowed from the satyam of the anidam, the sakshi, you. Because you, the satyam, is invariably there. See this? Just look at this, something very simple. You don't have any deep-seated doubts. Oh my gosh, how this, that, the. It's very simple. And you cannot delete this. You cannot ignore this. You cannot say no to this. This is the truth. Because you, the Anidam, you are the Anidam. Because you're the only one who is not this. So the Anidam, is always there. Just see it. Is there any time when you are not there? You are clearly there in waking state. You're clearly there in the dream state. And you're also there in the deep sleep state. You're there in the deep sleep state. Why? How can we say that? It's very important to see this. Because, because of what? Because when you are awake from deep sleep, you recall that you were sleeping. You had a sleepy experience. And what did you do in the sleepy experience? Nothing. And how can anybody say that? If you didn't have a sleep experience, just like you have a dream experience, if you didn't have a sleep experience, you will never be able to say, I slept. Because you'd get up and somebody will say, what did you do? He says, I have no idea. What are you talking about? But that's not true. Immediately after getting up, and in fact for a while, you say, I slept. You can even say, I had bad dreams, good dreams. But then I also had moments where I was sleeping. So clearly, you're always there. You are the Satyam. Right? Very simple to see. You are Sat Swarupa. And as we have seen, that Sat Swarupa, you don't even need any sadhana for it. No pramanam. You don't need any proof. This is how natural you are. And this is like in the example of the clay and the cup. The clay is always there, but the cup can come and go. So this is exactly what is happening in my life. I find that Anidam is naturally Satyam, naturally there. And Idam arises out of Anidam. And while it is there, Idam and Anidam both are there. But Idam can go, but Anidam can stay. Not can, it stays. You cannot erase it even. That is the ultimate. You, the conscious being, is the Anidam. And plus, important to see, there cannot be an idam without you. Whenever you have an idam, you are there. So any idam needs you. It cannot be without you. And then we can see that the laws of this simple logic apply. That in any case, in any situation, any situation, the idam and anidam relationship is never broken. It's the same relationship. So let's just see a few examples of that. I borrowed this from a very interesting, very important discussion in the Brahma Sutra Bhashya by Swami Akhandananda ji. So he says, let's look at this. So before we do that, one other point. The anidam is what is called the adhisthana of idam. Just like clay is the adhisthana. It is the basis of all forms. Adhisthana means the very basis, the very content, the very upadana karanam, the very material of all causes. It's called adhisthana. So just remember that word. So now, one, the anidam does not have manyness in it. Anidam does not have any idams in it. It is anidam alone. So just like in the case of clay, there is no cupness in clay. It is not stuck with it. It comes up, it comes up. It's not intrinsic to the clay. Similarly, one, the anidam, doesn't have manyness in it. But this is important to see. The manyness shines in oneness. Manyness shines in oneness. So the mithya requires the satyam. It shines in the satyam. It is contained in it. It is illuminated by satyam. So as we go through some more of these examples, one other thing should be kept in mind. It also is a very important concept for us to keep in front of us as we begin to analyze our life and reality of it and so on. That which is this. It almost goes back to the very definition of an experience. So As I said before, the example of an experience is, let's say, in the modern era, watching a movie. Watching a movie. Watching a movie means that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of changes of light and darkness in the form of people and sound and motion. And then if you have the mental capacity and the memory, then you can overlay a story on top of that. Because you can say there is a man, there is a woman, and they are young. So all this is from your previous experience. A child may not be able to overlay all these ideas, but a person with vasanas can say, okay, there's a boy and a girl, and they're holding hands, and they're kissing, and then they're walking, they're very friendly. All those kinds of things are going on, right? There's a story behind it and so on. So this is the experience. So now, what are the essential parts of this experience? Just analyze that. One is the adhisthana upon which the projections are taking place. The basis which itself does not take on the changes projected on it, but it is required to be independent of the various scenes. If the light falls on it, so be it. If there's darkness, so be it. It just provides the adhisthana, the screen. So the formless screen is an important element of this experience of the changes and so on. This is one aspect. The other aspect is a steady source of light that can light up the changes in the film. One can even make hand signals like this. You've seen that. They'll make rabbit ears and so on. But in this more sophisticated case, there is a rapid movement of a film that provides the movement of these various figures on the screen. So now there are two factors in an experience. So one is adhisthana, means the basis on which the changes are taking place, and the basis itself should not change. If the basis is changing, then you have confusion. You won't be able to see anything very clearly. But if the basis remains the same, only provides the backdrop upon which all the things take place, that is one of the true requirements for an experience called the adhisthana. And this adhisthana is of a nature in which it is there even before the changes take place. It is there while the changes are taking place, and it is there after the changes have ceased. And it has nothing to do with the changes. All it provides is a neutral backdrop that provides the adhisthana for all the changes. This is number one. The other one is a steady light that illuminates the changes. Right? If you don't have these two factors, you don't have an experience. So one is called adhisthana, and in the other one, is called, so one is called the basis. If you look at English for a minute, one is the basis, the screen, and the other one is the light, the illuminator, source of light. So now we have two factors. One is an adhisthana, and the other one in Sanskrit called prakashaka. Prakashaka. Prakash means light, and the word ka means the one that the source of the light is called prakashaka. Okay? All right. If that is the case, if that is understood, and it's something that is graspable, then we can now begin to see the interplay between idam and anidam. So we saw one example, now we can begin to build a storyline. So one is that the anidam is one. It doesn't have manyness. But the manyness is shining in the oneness. The manyness has an appearance in oneness. The manyness does not have its own, it's not a vastu by itself. The vastu of manyness is oneness. Ekam. Manyness is anekam. So anekam is illumined by ekam, but is mithya. So ekam and anekam, look at this. So this is anidam and idam. It's very simple. What is satyam and what is mithya? You need both the factors. In fact, you cannot have mithya without satyam. Okay, let's go to the next one. In sentience, in consciousness, in jnanam, there is no inertness. In sentience, there is no inertness. Right? In jnanam, there is no jada. But inertness, if there is illumined by sentience. So just like before, the manyness is illumined by oneness. Here, the inertness is illumined by the sentience, but is not separate from it. And by the way, in all of these, again, I don't know whether in this series of classes I have mentioned this, but of course I've mentioned that in previous classes, but make a note of this in this series of compiling what is the basis of Vedanta, that in order to satisfy my hunger for understanding exactly what is going on, three things are necessary. What is called Shruti, what is called Yukti, and the third one is called Anubhava. Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhava. Shruti means Shastra. Shruti means, hey, please see it this way. And if you see it this way, you'll be okay, you'll be free. So this is the Shansanam of Shastra. This is called Shruti, the authority. Because we are making a mistake in our life, in the way we assess things, how we conclude about ourselves, that I'm just a small person, all of this kind of a thing. So that has to be presented in the right way, that there are some mistakes. You're not a small person. You're okay. You're a complete person. In fact, you are more complete than the rest of the world. And so that is a unusual authoritative sentence or knowledge that requires somebody with better understanding than you and I. That is called Shruti. But then what the Shruti does is to rely on your Yukti. Yukti means logic. And so this is what we are doing. We are considering the logic of, consider the two factors in a clay and a cup, how the cup comes and goes, the clay stays. This is Yukti. Then comes the third factor, which is the clincher of the whole thing, which means Anubhava. Anubhava means an experience. So this is if you're talking about the uniqueness of Vedanta, this is a very important thing to understand. It took me a long time to grasp this fact. Because I had heard about this, Shruti, Yukti, Anubhava, and so on. But how that became clearer with the teaching of Swami Akhandananda, I must say that. What do we mean by Anubhava and the clincher? He says, look, the whole idea of, and we've talked about this in other classes also, the whole idea of a dream, there is one of the most beautiful innovations of Paramatma, Parameshwara, is to say that all inertness does not have a separate existence apart from sentience. What do you mean by that? Just look at it. In last night's dream or some other dream, did you not see a car? Were you not sitting on a chair? Weren't there walls? Car, chair, walls are all inert. And yet, is there a separate existence for the car, chair, and the walls? No. They are really nothing but an expression of sentience, which is you. There is no table, no car, no nothing. So the car also depends on the sentience. Movement also depends on jnanam. Wall also depends on jnanam. So there is no separate thing as jadam. It also is illumined by and contained within the sentience, which is jnanam, which is anidam, which is you. So that's the situation. You are the adhisthana, you are the prakashaka of the entire experience. You are the basis in which everything comes and goes, and you are the light that shows the entire happenings. Without you, there will be nothing. This is a fact. You are the Satyam, you are the Chit Swarupam. Chit Swarupam is the light. Satyam is the Adhisthana. And the understanding that, my goodness, I am the independent source of the world is Ananda. So next time we will continue with this tour of the two basic factors of existence, which is what you are seeing and you, the seer, and how the two are related together. And one is independent and the other one is dependent. This I did not know. I didn't realize the importance of the drik. And the more I study, the more I look into it, the more I understand the mistakes that I made. And so this study, this analysis, leading to a more accurate assessment of ourselves, we will continue in the next class. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Good. Nice to see you all. Excellent. Good. Hope to see you next week. Goodbye. Hari Om.